Hi, I'm Jeff Franke, Editorial Director of Manufacturing.net and Manufacturing Business Technology. Welcome to Security Breach. As the saying goes, it's the little things that kill, and in cybersecurity, that little thing could be as innocent as a singular mouse click on a wrong URL from a familiar-looking email. A recent report from Trend Micro shows that 75% of all cyber attacks start with phishing emails, or messages made to look like a non-threatening communication from a colleague, vendor, or a trusted source, but containing links meant to abstract vital personal data. Additionally, research from cybertalk.org states that about 90% of data breaches are the result of phishing schemes, and the FBI is projecting a year-over-year increase of 400% for these types of attacks. Finally, cybersecurity software and services provider Mimecast found that 96% of respondents to their survey acknowledged having faced some form of phishing attack in the last year. The key is to not associate the tool too closely with the evil intentions of hackers. Email remains a highly efficient and vitally important communication tool, but one that requires greater diligence than in the past. Joining us to discuss this situation is Fleming Shi, Chief Technology Officer at Barracuda Networks, a leading provider of data security products and services. Fleming, again, thanks so much for joining us here on Security Breach. Right from the start, in looking at the things that Barracuda specializes in and matching that up with some of the bigger issues that some of our folks in manufacturing have, what can you tell us when we're looking at email and cloud networks from a security perspective? What are some of the biggest vulnerabilities that you're seeing there?
Great question, actually. We have coverage in multiple attack surfaces. You touched on the cloud component and also the email component. These two areas, as you know, in MITRE ATT&CK framework, email usually is sort of the beginning phase where they do some credential theft or basically impersonation of a reputable application or domain, or they're trying to actually go through an exercise of phishing to actually get your credential stolen, right? And that's usually a very serious problem. Sometimes they can take additional actions, right? They may not even do the phishing if they already have some credentials to basically crack open your email accounts in your Office 365 environment. So they can actually start with email sort of business email compromise kind of attack, when they will have conversations with the team that you work with. So I think that angle, it is super difficult for a lot of folks if you don't have the proper tools. If you're only scanning for malware or looking for malicious links, you may not get everything, and sometimes these attacks come through the cracks. So email is definitely one area we have to pay attention to. Cloud is huge. As you can see, I just came back from AWS reInvent. It was a great event. Tens of thousands, probably like bigger than before the pandemic. A lot of people are building software in the cloud, sometimes using public cloud environments. One of the critical areas is that actually being able to use the cloud securely, having the proper security posture, configuration mistakes and policy gaps usually lead to really bad outcomes, right? So I think the idea here is to really pay attention to and all the things that you're exposed to in the cloud, all the different native services, including your virtual machines and all that, and your identity access. Again, back to identity. If you have an email business compromise scenario, you can end up losing certain keys and credentials that leads into your cloud environment. So those are also very important. So cloud security posture for the builders, it's extremely important. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought up both of those things in terms of phishing schemes and cloud security. We'll circle back on cloud a little bit. Looking at phishing schemes, this is a huge issue within the industrial sector. Why do you think these attacks continue to be so prominent? What is going on that makes them so attractive to the bad guys? And are you seeing any particular tactics that can be useful in sort of warding off these types of attacks?
Definitely. So as you know, manufacturing uses a lot of OT, and actually I was talking to one of the leaders in Amazon last week, especially what they call the digital twin, creating a digital replication of your environment and really visualizing what's going on. But what they're doing is mostly for efficiency and productivity. But for security perspective, you have to think about the signals you're getting from the networks, the signals you're getting from your devices, and also more importantly, who access those networks and who access those devices. So I think if you think about the best way to go about and actually securing an environment like that, which could be hybrid, some parts in public cloud, some could be in on-prem. And so if you think about that, zero trust is really the only way that actually you can start kind of peel back access and make sure you have microsegmentation, so you're not exposing the entirety of your network for certain type of access, right? So it's important to think along that way. So if you look at it that way, most people utilize some type of mobile device or laptop or any computing endpoints. You can actually measure the security posture of that environment, and while you're doing all that, you can actually revoke access. For example, if you see a account takeover event, you can revoke access to that user or that employee's or even a device, right? Access to certain things. So this is why ecosystem makes a huge play in the future of cybersecurity, because you need the visibility. Ecosystem as in the sense of data lakes, tools allowing you to see through where the signals are coming from and take action quickly. So you might be able to shutter, or basically you can actually stop the actual attack from getting worse. So this is why we did some really awesome interactivity with Amazon before reInvent this year. We did an integration with our email security findings with their latest, and it's called the Amazon Security Lake, which is their basically data lake for security signals. And if you think about it, email signal, if you can use that correctly with your tooling and you can respond to it, you might put away the actual attack, right? So the credential won't be stolen, so no one can actually get into your environment. So this is why I think that's a good tactic, just to utilize the proper findings and take action early. Yeah.
We've talked a lot about zero trust before on security breach. We've touched on segmentation, and I think data lake is a new term for some of our listeners and viewers. Could you talk a little bit more on your thoughts on segmentation and how that can be a very effective tool? And then maybe define a little bit what a data lake actually is.
Absolutely. Yeah, so let's start with segmentation. So we have been talking about segmentation for years. In the past, is really network segmentation. People utilize VLAN to actually separate networks, right? So imagine in an infrastructure, you have networks that is related to finance. Another network could be related to engineering. You probably don't want these networks to kind of overlap, because there could be. The idea is to reduce the attack surface. But today's world, you can even do a lot more, right? You can microsegment to the degree where certain access to certain SaaS applications based on your security posture. It could be Fleming, but if I'm using a different laptop and happen to be in the public Wi-Fi environment, maybe the access gets cut down by a lot more, right? So if you think about it, used to be network level segmentation. Now it's actually application level segmentation based on a lot more information and contextual information about your environment before you're granted access to probably the most critical asset of any company is data, right? Yeah. So if you think through that covers applications itself as well as the data sitting in the application. So the future, you're going to see SaaS applications will have security components and features within them that you can leverage to actually reduce the attack surface, even within a SaaS application itself. Let it be a NetSuite, let it be a Salesforce. The biggest example is the one that we care about the most is Microsoft 365, where email, OneDrive, a lot of data sharing is happening, right? So thinking through that's really important. Hopefully that explains about the segmentation, how it's evolving. The second big topic is data lake. Data lake is really databases, right? The concept of data lake is a little bit more flexible in the sense where data could be coming in structured or non-structured scenarios. But as we look at it, one nice thing about reInvent this year is they're talking about data management and actually optimizing the use of data without tons of copying and transferring, because the old days, actually, I shouldn't say old days, even now we're still doing the same thing. You have data in one database, you need to kind of extract the data or transform the data and putting in another database, and you end up with multiplying too many databases. So the word federation becomes the important word in the future, as in how we are going to look at accessing data, using the data more efficiently, and therefore can help the customers, right? For us and Microsoft as well, but Amazon as well, what we're doing is we're providing actionable signals that we find. Imagine Barracuda we have a portfolio of products. So if we're able to see the signal in the early part of attack, and you're able to take action on it, guess what happens? Then later on, you probably save tons of space, right? You don't have to worry about the network lateral movements because you prevented that credential theft, right?
Yeah.
So data lake is it's a technology kind of terminology, but it really is databases and signals, information, and what we're looking at is integration with more, especially in hyperscalers environment. It will help our customers in a great deal. This is why the email signal was really interesting, because people ask me, Amazon, they don't do email. Why, sending the email signal? Because we have customers utilizing AWS and might be, looking for those signals. And you don't want to just send logs. You want to send really actionable signals, so it's not noisy, right?
So the lake is does it remove some of the need to copy that data all over the place? It's one repository that they can go to get that for different places, different networks, I should say.
Yeah, but just the data lake itself, it's really not like that, but it's really how you use it. So in this case, Barracuda have chosen to integrate with, with Security Lake. It is actually a couple components. One is the OCSF format, which is the open cybersecurity schema framework that allows us to collaborate with the signal that is, basically the same standard across the industry. That's what we're working on. Well, that's the number one component. So you have to get the signal into that format. Secondly, you have to put it into customers' S3 bucket. They're designated for Security Lake. The nice thing about that, S3 can be managed in a way that it could be very cost efficient, right? And secondly, if we are putting into very actionable signals, we're not just loading up logs. We're not dumping logs into your bucket. Then you have to parse it. That will hurt, actually. So what we do is really how, as a vendor, being responsible and providing useful signal, then they can look at it. Okay, I got a signal that relates to account takeover or business email compromise. In that situation, they can do certain things to maybe change the user's passwords or enforce MFA, or things like that will help reduce the risk of the attack going further, right? So if you think along that way, is less copying, more reaction to a useful signal. Yeah.
That makes sense. Before we get away from phishing, I'm just wondering, are these attacks continuing to be so popular? I mean, we're seeing huge growth in the phishing attack scheme. Is it just because it works, it's easy? Is there some other particular reason why this continues to be so popular with the bad guys?
Definitely. Let me use a anonymized episode that I heard recently to explain why. It's super lucrative, right? So first of all, since 2004, just around the globe, we lost close to 17.2, I just say 18 billion pieces of data breach wise. I mean, billion. So it gets worse. It's not just consumer websites or email. It's also our credit credit keeping data stores, right? And if you think about that, what's happening is there is a resource pool for the bad guys. They can actually iterate on that resource pool and continue to build on it, because the pool is so big. They have so much to work with, right? And that means they can identify some target. They can find a relationship related to the target. They can go after the relationships within that zone. And if they're really clever, they probably extend the breach to get more data, so it feeds itself. So first of all, it's easy, it's lucrative, and they're providing services to the way they do it now, they figure out how to scale by giving anyone access to their tools and give them a cut once they actually mount a successful attack. So so the breadth of actual attackers goes from highly skilled tool creators and maybe even I would just call it ransomware gangsters, or it goes all the way to street level people are pushing unfortunately this type of attacks. So they have vast resources in terms of even just people, right? Then the next thing is really about the manufacturing and as well as any other industry. Today's world depends on digital transformation, depends on the stuff to actually function. So the likelihood of actually people paying ransom or committing to kind of succumb to this type of attack, it's very likely. So to them, the target is easy. The fourth one I will touch on, it's kind of scary. It's about extension to attack beyond just getting your business back on track. It's extortion, doxing, right? So they can completely screw up your organization if they disclose the salaries of everyone's in your company, because then people will be asking, why am I getting paid less than others? So you can actually screw up a company. Second, they could, another scenario will be customers, right? Why is this customer getting paid, they're paying more than another customer? That could screw up your business relationships. So the doxing and extortion, all these things are extensions to their existing set of tooling. So to me, I think it's because it's lucrative, it's easy, and also because they have more resources now, because it's contract to hire or ransomware as a service. These are the terms we hear a lot, and to the degree where it has depth in terms of how they multiply their attacks to actually get more for each campaign, and makes it too easy for them, and unfortunately,
No, the scope of this sort of hacker network when it comes to phishing and ransomware is equal parts impressive and terrifying. It's really something how complex it's become. Circling back a little bit to cloud, in the industrial sector, there's almost a false sense of security in terms of we've got data in the cloud, and I think there's just an inherent thought that it's there, it's safe. So in looking at the folks that are going to be listening to and watching this episode, they're either going to have to go back to their cloud and sort of reintegrate security elements, or they're just in the initial stages where they can implement those security elements right away. What advice could you give in either instance, whether you're going back and working through things, or if you're at the starting point and working with the cloud?
I think, talking about cloud, to me, it still starts from the identity perspective, right? So the user, the device, the keys you use for accessing your cloud environment, they're gold. You have to protect it, really. And also sometimes you have to recycle. You have to kind of rehydrate quite a bit. So the key there is to think about security posture as a way of examining user behavior within your organization. Sometimes you could have insider threats as well, right? I think we heard enough situations where disgruntled employee leaves the company, intentionally leaving the door open. What does that mean? That means maybe leaving a key to the world where bad guys can utilize in company, right? So that could be a situation. So I think the ability to monitor and constantly watch over your cloud environment, cloud security posture is very important. But don't forget, there's a lot of data that goes beyond just what your builders are using. It's your SaaS applications. So in the future, SaaS applications where your data lives, these applications are going to get more mature, right? So, the first ever SaaS application, I would say, is just a simple website. Then it got a little bit more complicated. It becomes e-commerce. Then you start storing credit cards and all that. So what's really crazy is this evolution of SaaS is probably outpaced by, I would just say, what I'm trying to say is evolution of SaaS is faster than security of SaaS. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if people who are building SaaS, if they're able to instrument security controls in there, then you need to take advantage of those controls. For example, if a SaaS today does not have ability to turn on MFA in a correct way, then you probably shouldn't be using that web application, because it still depends only on username and maybe strong passwords, right? But really, if you think about it, in the future, these applications are going to get more mature. They're going to interact with Azure AD. They're going to register into your Azure AD as your enterprise apps. You need to see what security features are native to that application and utilize it. That's what we call the SaaS security posture measurement, which means you are just like CSPM. SSPM is about constantly monitoring and ensuring there's no configuration errors and drifts in terms of how you're using the SaaS itself. Because I think there will be a lot more data that's going into SaaS environments. Don't forget, once again, Microsoft 365, the biggest SaaS in the world, probably. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I got to ask, I'm not trying to continue to focus on the negative stuff here, but from your position, you're in a unique place to see these types of things. Are there any new organizations or types of threats that you're seeing really spike or have kind of lit up your radar, so to speak?
Yeah, definitely. Especially in the manufacturing space, I think we need to pay attention to automation tools and systems that could be just functioning normally because it's just works, like a robot or automation kind of process, like manufacturing lines. So one of the things is to protect those really, it's important, use a security device that basically eliminates any incoming and outgoing kind of signals getting into that device, because a lot of them actually were built on Windows. 2017, WannaCry, Petya, all those good examples. Unfortunately, they due to a Windows vulnerability, they were able to get into these devices and be very disruptive. So I think especially related to our audience here, it's important to protect those almost like edge, put a shield around it, digital shield around it, right? That means you have a zero trust based, SD-WAN device that provides connectivity and security together as a package to make sure that OT is not getting affected. The other part is really just think about the amount of credentials we have already lost and on the pieces of data we already lost. So, think about how you react to a potential ransomware attack or wiperware attack, which is more prominent in a scenario where we have physical war, because nation states are just basically trying to destroy the environment, not really trying to negotiate with you. They just want to destroy it, right? So yeah. In those situations, you really have to think about your recovery time objective and recovery point objective. Those two objectives helps you get back to business. If you're not able to come in the window, you may lose your business or it leaves a permanent damage. So those are situations you have to pay a lot of attention to. More, credential theft leads to more credential theft, leads to potential takeover your network and data breach, and also wiperware, destructive malware are out there right now. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's not all bad news, though. I know companies like yours, like Barracuda, are doing a lot of things to help, especially in the industrial sector, against a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. Maybe you could go through and talk a little bit about some of the things that you guys are working on to help.
Absolutely. So we have a very sophisticated set of technology. We made it very easy to consume. For example, our CloudGen WAN offering allows you to actually design your network that involves your OT. It could be a camera for a police department in a region. We actually do have a customer like that. I can't tell you who it is, but we have that, protecting every surveillance camera in that way across a region to allow us to actually protect these devices, right? And think through in terms of every single touch point for attack. So phishing, email phishing usually is the initial phase. If they're trying to get in, they probably likely try to steal your credential. Then they use the credential. In the old days, they do a phishing. They just attack your laptop, right? Yeah, that's bad. But maybe they can do something. But if they take your credential, they remember it's Azure AD that could be used in your SaaS application, could be used in your VPN environment, right? They can use that credential without you watching, getting into your environment, do a lot more damage. So credential theft is something that we pay a lot of attention to, which we have some really sophisticated tools to stop that kind of attack. We even have a scanner to actually scan through like 1 year worth of your email communication in your Office 365 tenant and be able to tell you where the phishing actually already happened and still lives in your inbox, right? Things like that will be useful to you to actually kind of stop the attack early, the better. This is why I told the guys in Amazon, like, if we get our signal to be really useful to our customers in a security lake, other signals probably won't happen, which is a good thing, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you've talked a lot about credential theft, which is a huge concern. That's where the phishing attack starts. That's what they're going after. And then, as you also indicated, that usually can down the road lead to a ransomware attack, which we see way too often here in the industrial sector. So one of the things I do like to ask people when they come on security breaches, if you're an industrial enterprise, you get hit with a ransomware attack, do you pay, or what is the best response to have?
Yeah, I have always been, it's a little controversial, but I always been advising people not to pay. That you have to think about it as a mental state. Like, what does that mean when I say not to pay? Of course, if you have to service, in a hospital scenario, you have life and death, maybe you have to get back to business. Those scenarios might be exception. But if you think about, if you have the mental state of not to pay, you work backwards. You work out the scenario where, okay, let me identify what is my most critical assets and data. Assets and data are separate things. If one of your systems or a cluster of your systems go down, you can only recover the data. That's not enough. You have to get the system back up as well, right? So if you get all those things aligned, then you have a clear picture of how you can really be on the upper hand against the attacker. Separately, remember extortion, doxing, these things can happen, right? So you probably want to consistently monitor your reputation of your execs and other people who may have exposure on social media, other things where their data could be compromised, could lead to more of a problem for the business. So you have to pay attention to that too. Once you have these plans and processes in place, and encrypt your data in a scenario where you can prevent the bad guys from seeing anything, and rotate the keys. Don't leave a key in one place, right? And things like that. So I think just being proactive to the point where, if it gets hit, bad guys, the proof of life call will be like, okay, you got nothing on me, right? Like, you can't really open the file. Maybe you have smaller set of things. So you can negotiate better. You can actually have a better outcome. And the other important thing is you probably get a better insurance premium if you actually are fully prepared. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Looking forward, Fleming, what are some of the biggest trends you're seeing, good and bad, as it relates to cybersecurity over the next maybe 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, the biggest trend, I would say, I still lean back a little bit on the SaaS security part. If you're able to play around with your Azure AD environment, you will be able to actually use APIs to see maybe tens, maybe hundreds of SaaS applications that's associated and linked with your environment. So those SaaS applications are new attack surfaces. Their ability to stop the attacker is unfortunately, could be the weakest link or could be strong, right? So the reputation of those SaaS applications, their readiness, and the data that lives in it. So you have to have that visibility. What kind of data I'm using for this SaaS versus another matters a lot.
Thanks for joining us, Fleming. For more information on the work Barracuda does, you can check them out at barracuda.com. Thanks for joining us today. To catch up on past episodes, you can go to manufacturing.net, IEN.com, or mbtmag.com. You can also check Security Breach out wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Amazon, and Overcast. And if you have a cybersecurity story or topic that you'd like to have us explore on Security Breach, you can reach me at jeff@ien.com. For Fleming Shi, I'm Jeff Ranke, and this is Security Breach.